Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Corey Ayanaji, and I am the Ballantine Gallery Manager at the History Colorado Center and the coordinator of the Voces and Arte program. Before we begin, in the spirit of healing and education, we want to acknowledge the 48 contemporary tribes with historic ties to the state of Colorado. These tribes are our partners. We consult with them when we plan exhibits, collect, preserve, and interpret artifacts, do archaeological work, and create educational programs. We recognize these indigenous peoples as the original inhabitants of this land. We are so delighted to have all of you here with us today. Voces and Arte was created in partnership with the Latino Cultural Arts Center to coincide with the History Colorado Center's newest exhibit, Hecho in Colorado. For more information about the exhibit, please check out the exhibit webpage, and I will copy that and put it in the chat box below for you all to view later. We are thrilled to bring together artists for a 7-part series of conversations to talk about the importance of Mexicano and Chicano art in the state of Colorado. And this is our third Voces and Arte, so again, thank you for joining us. But before we move on to introduction, I'd like to explain how this program is going to work. The first thing I want to talk about is the chat box. This is where I will be sharing program resources like the link I just shared, and this is where you will be able to communicate with me and the artist. If you have tech questions, this is where you will put them. Some people might not see dialog boxes the same on tablets and phones and on computers, so we will do our best to accommodate all devices. At the end of the program, we will have some time for questions and answers. Please write them in the box and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can. And I also just want to mention again that we do have a live Spanish interpreter for the duration of this program. If you would like to use this service, please tap the interpretation icon and select Spanish, and then select Mute Original Sound. If at any time you would like to go back to hearing the program in English, select the interpretation icon again and click off. Do not select the English tab or you will not hear anything. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the moderator of our program, Adriana Abarca. Adriana is the founder of the Latino Cultural Arts Center. She was born and raised in Northwest Denver and holds a BA degree in Latin American Studies from CU Boulder. After graduating, she worked in the arts in San Francisco for 5 years, including at the Mexican Museum, and traveled extensively throughout the United States and Mexico to build her knowledge of cultural representation. Her parents started the Abarca family collection as a way of supporting the work of artist friends in Colorado and Mexico. Currently, she is the exhibiting curator for the Hecho in Colorado exhibit, now on view at History Colorado in the Ballantine Gallery. Please welcome Adriana.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Team LCAC, I'd like to welcome you to this presentation, and I'd like to thank our sponsors, History Colorado and AARP. So we're going to start with me giving the artist statement for Karma Leigh, and these are Karma Leigh's words. In recent years, my paintings have increasingly focused on utilizing bright, bold colors to convey the energy of animals and women from a spiritual and cultural point of view. In a fast-paced urban world, we have come to disconnect from our mother, the earth, and our spiritual relationship with her. With each painting, I hope to inspire a reconnection to things society tends to overlook: women, nature, and culture. Currently, I am focusing on new work that highlights these inequities in subtle symbolism and vibrant colors. And I'm going to go ahead and also give Arlette Lucero's statement so that I don't forget to do that as we go further into the process here. Arlette Lucero states that I am a professional visual artist in Denver. My paintings and sculptures are visual, poetic expressions of my emotions, feelings, and desires. Using a combination of realism, symbolism, and vibrant colors, I try to capture the central mystery of my original concept. My pieces are illustration of stories, poems, and personal obsessions. As a woman, I love to paint beautiful women of timeless ages in endless time. These are the goddesses of many cultures or simple mothers. So thank you very much for joining us, Karma and Arlette. Let's get this started.
Thank you.
So Karma, I had the good fortune of meeting you only recently, and what happened is I had seen your portrait of artist and friend Summer, well, a friend of yours named Summer, and I fell in love with it. I thought it was such a beautiful portrait, and I wanted to be sure to include you in the Hecho en Colorado exhibit as an up-and-coming Chicana artist. And so I asked you to come up with a portrait of any subject that you wanted to do, and this is the beautiful creation you came up with. Can you tell us a little bit more about this painting, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm very excited for a number of reasons. The portrait that you're looking at here is actually of one of my best friends who's pretty much like a sister mostly, but she's a Denver native. Her parents grew up in Colorado after moving from Texas. Her mom was a teacher at North. They participated when she was little. She went to some of the walkouts and like at West High School in March, and she's a creator, painter, jewelry maker, mother. She currently works in DPS, and her and I have had these conversations about identity for a long time. So that's why I titled it Yo Soy Chicana, because her parents are Mexican, but she grew up her whole life in North Denver. And so she just had this really proud moment recently where she's like very much like kind of fully come into like herself as a woman. And this picture or this portrait that I painted actually is from an image that was a photograph taken the day she sold a pair of Nike Cortezes that she beaded in the tradition of a huichol style. So it was a pretty big deal for her, and this photographer captured this image, and I just really felt like that term, like Yo Soy Chicana, she's very modern, but still has that like Pachuca vibe to her. So that's why I decided to paint this portrait.
So Karma, do you self-identify as well as a Chicana?
I do. Same reasoning, a little bit different story, but it took a few years of self-reflection and kind of digging deep into my family and the who's and what's and whys of how culture has been taken away from family or, you know, not promoted, I guess, like being proud of where your family's from. And so only in the recent few years that I've like come to like, this is how I identify as a Chicana, acknowledging like my mixed ancestry and yeah.
So what would your ancestry be as far as you're aware of?
So on my dad's side, I am Mexican. My great-grandparents are from Morelia, and my grandfather, his mom is native from Texas, Comanche blood, and then also Mexican as well. And then my mom's side of the family is Portuguese and pretty much all of Great Britain. So like that immigrant from Europe side. And I think Spanish too, Spain, Spanish. So with a little bit of other things sprinkled in here and there.
And so I know you spent quite a few years when you were older in Arizona, but where did you grow up primarily?
I grew up Colorado native, so pretty much the whole Front Range from Aurora, Denver to Evergreen. I got to spend a lot of time when I was a kid from about the middle of second grade to my sophomore year living in the mountains, which was a huge shift for me. I grew up in a trailer park off of Colfax and then like all of a sudden was living across from Arapahoe National Forest, which is good for now. Like I appreciate how amazing that was. I got to hike a lot when I was a kid, but I had family that still lived in the city kind of all over. So kind of both between both of those worlds is where I would say grew up as a kid in the mountains and then like as a teen adult in the city.
Were you exposed to your Mexican culture at all when you were living in Evergreen?
No, actually not. And I knew from a very early age that I was like, quote unquote, different, just because I experienced a lot of like what we call nowadays, like microaggressions, like covert racist comments and things like that. So my mom is white and doesn't have like any like traditions on like our side, like her side of the family, but neither does my Mexican side of the family. So from assimilation and a bunch of other things, like my aunts and uncles and my dad, they couldn't speak to their grandma because my grandma never, to their grandma, because their mom never taught them Spanish. So it was a real weird upbringing. Like just recently had a conversation with some people about this, and my grandma told me that when I was 5, she asked me if I was white or brown, and I guess I said white. So she said that's why she never taught me anything. So it's a weird, yeah, very interesting, just growing up, but like understanding history and why that generation, certain people feel that way. It makes sense. So I have no hatred towards it.
So when were you first exposed to artwork?
Pretty much since I was little. My dad's always kind of just drawn, just sketching. My uncle was an artist. He won some big awards when he was in high school. And I just always really gravitated towards drawing. My first drawings from when my mom saved is from like when I was 2.5, and it's just like a little kid family that you draw. But I've always been into it. It's always attracted me, all kinds of art. So.
But you say that for the most part you're self-taught. Would you agree that you're pretty much self-taught?
Yeah.
Have you ever taken any formal studies?
No, I took, when I was in college, I was going for a completely different career, and just as an elective, I took a drawing class. But that's really it. I've learned most of everything that I know through trial and error. A lot of the artists that I'm friends with, just studying what they do, or if I'm stuck, I ask a lot of questions. I'm not prideful in that way. Like if I don't understand something, or if I want something to be better, I'll ask people who I know that have accomplished that. But everything is pretty much trial and error, and just kind of always painting. Like I'm a night owl, kind of insomniac. So I spent a lot of my years just staying up, trying things.
So you do very beautiful depictions of birds. I know that birds are amongst your favorite objects to depict in your paintings.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a little bit more about this project that you've been working on?
Yeah, I have this amazing project that I'm doing with my friend Summer, which is the woman that I painted, that Adriana mentioned earlier. And she came to me. We've known each other for a really long time, through mutual friends and things like that in the scene of Denver. And she saw a painting of mine that made her feel like for her project, I was the right artist to do the job. And so this whole project, Burnt Kid Messages, is, for better lack of a way to describe it, kind of like an oracle deck, if you're into tarot and that kind of spiritual practice. So every single card out of the 30 card deck is a specific bird feather that her and I have gained access to, like through from various means. We didn't purchase any feathers or anything like that, but I photographed every feather, and then I painted this image, which is 4 feet by 3 feet, and it is the cover of the box for Bird Kid Messages. So like her and I are very, we have a very strong relationship with birds, and she's Choctaw, Cherokee, and Comanche. So a lot of like the spiritual aspect of this project come from a lot of her belief systems as a Native woman, and is kind of like a healing deck. I don't know. That's like, it's like very spiritual. So it's kind of, sometimes I feel weird, like, how do you tell people? But it's guidance, I guess. So yeah, that's what this is. And I love it. And I feel like none of the photos I've gotten taken of it professionally, it just doesn't do it justice, because it's such a vibrant piece in person. The subtle colors and the cardinal and the owl and the crow.
When will the deck come out? When will it be available?
Soon. Currently it's shipping. It's on a boat somewhere in the sea. COVID really slowed everything down. We anticipated having this in, excuse me, like March or April. Obviously everything shut down and we were getting it printed in China. So that like really got everything shut down. So within like the next month, I am like fingers crossed, shipping comes through, everything will be in our hands, like even maybe next week. So
how many images will there be in the deck?
30. So everything from great horned owl to cardinal, a hummingbird feather, bald eagle. I mean, all kinds of different birds. So, and each of them has their own message for you to integrate into your daily life.
And will they be?
Oh, sorry.
Will it be for sale on your website?
Yeah, we actually have a Etsy set up for you to purchase decks. We had a pre-order campaign that we still are accepting pre-order donations. We're just not giving the tiered gifts to go along with it. So the pre-order price is $25. But yeah, they will be available website and my website as well.
So here we go. Here's a beautiful portrait of Summer. Can you tell us, you were, this was part of a project that you were invited to participate in. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Excuse me. Yes, this hazy smoke is making me a little coarse. So this was in the spring, and this was for a Women of Color show at the Sangre de Cristo Art Center in Pueblo. And I was contacted by a guest curator of theirs. She's going to college to do things like this. She wanted to curate a show of women of color by women of color. So I thought, who better to paint a portrait of than my friend Summer, because not only is she Native, she's also half Saudi. And so we have a lot of conversations, not only with our Birdkin project, but just about identity and how you're accepted within your communities and being mixed and where do you belong. And so I thought she was a perfect subject to create. And she has this beautiful, big old thick hair and she loves it. She's a Leo and she's very vivacious. And so she wanted me to zhuzh up her hair even more. So it was fun. And she just has like, she's really good at taking selfies. Like she does them all cute. And so I just picked a whole bunch that I liked of hers. And then this is the one that stuck. So I really love it. It's big too. It's 3 foot by 4 foot as well.
So with this portrait, I really could see the inspiration and influence of graffiti art. Can you tell me a little bit more of your background with graffiti when you started using the spray can for your artistic expression?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because everybody has like a different opinion about graffiti. And I'm so grateful that I fell into graffiti. I used to skateboard and it kind of went hand in hand back in the day. And I met a lot of really great artists through graffiti, and that's kind of what sparked my art career. Like I never really thought about art as a career until I started meeting graffiti artists who were becoming professional artists and showing in galleries and traveling internationally and doing murals and being in books and things like that. And yeah, I just started when I was like 16 years old and hung out with, you know, just the Denver kids and met a lot of people and have just been around for a long time. So it definitely influenced how I approach things too. I think that's where the self-taughtness comes in. A lot of graffiti writers who become professional artists are generally self-taught. So
with this painting, Ancestors, it's another collaboration. Can you talk to us a little bit more about this project?
Yeah, so I do a lot of animals. I love animals. Anybody who knows me or follows my work knows that for a number of different reasons. And my friend, who's one of my really good friends, she's Irish and Russian. And then I said my heritage earlier, and her and I were talking about this collaboration we got invited to do for my friend's gallery opening. It was Ila Gallery on Santa Fe. And they had a whole bunch of well-known artists kind of within our art community, some graffiti writers and et cetera, people who are participants in crush and mural things around the city. And this was our first ever collaboration, and it was our biggest painting, like not just a mural, but like an actual like canvas painting. And we wanted to pay honor to our ancestors, and the fact that I feel like sometimes I get so caught up on like only honoring like my Latino side of my life that I'm not honoring my grandmas on my Irish and like European side, and like regardless of the, you know, oppressed conflict in the bloodline. But we picked these animals specifically related to the country that they're from. So the top one's a red deer, and that's for both her and I's shared Irish ancestry because they're endemic to Ireland. And then the Russian Siberian tigers for her Russian side. And then the hummingbirds for the Mexican native, and then just like North American heritage that we both share. So I love it. It actually is what helped us get accepted to paint for Crush together as a collaborative team. So that was really cool.
And in just a moment, we're going to show the beginnings of your Crush mural. In the meantime, could you tell us a little bit more about your experience as a teacher and educator working with young people in our community?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate to have had some really great teaching careers or like experiences. Right now, everything's on hiatus because the work that I do is after school programming or field trips through Museo and Voz y Corazon. But like I had mentioned about the identity issues or like conflicts that I experienced growing up, and just kind of like the not knowing and seeing what it's done to my family on both sides. I feel very fortunate that I'm able to work with youth and get them to be proud of their heritage through artwork, through education, through just being proud of who you are and not being ashamed of it. So that's something that I very, very much treasure and value in my life. It's been kind of weird not teaching. Yeah, so I've been working.
What do you teach? What are you teaching the kids? Are you teaching only painting? Are you teaching drawing and sculpture as well? Or what are your emphasis?
Which program with Museo? It's our education programming, so you know, cultural component and then an art component. And then with Voz y Corazon, it's my own programming, and it's really just based on what the kids want, and that's mostly middle schoolers. And they are also at an age where identity issues are very strong because you're kind of leaving youth and becoming a teenager. And a lot of our work kind of centers around that, like just, and it's not even like exceptional. It's not like, you know, some mind-blowing projects that we work on, but just getting them to be confident in who they are, where their families are from, like be proud of that. And how do we express that in our artwork? If it's just even painting on a wooden picture frame, you know, just incorporating that in little subtle ways. I'm very big on like subtlety. Like I'm like, here's the things, like I'm not going to force anything down your throat, but it's okay. And this is a safe space. So
what inspired this painting of a fox?
You said who inspired it?
Or what inspired it?
They're magical creatures. Pretty sure they're not real, but they are real. And so it just kind of had this, I've been really into like neons and bright colors and like really, really embracing that. I've definitely been inspired by alebrijes, especially like the real vibrant, colorful ones. It gives me like a very, very deep, like warm, happy feeling when I see bright colors. So, I feel like fox kind of embody that to me. Like they've figured out how to live in urban spaces. They're always around us, but it's rare that you see one. And yeah, so that's kind of why he's got this weird mystical glow about him. Cause like I said, I don't think that they're maybe of Earth.
So we're going to go ahead and I believe we're going to go ahead and move on now. Thank you very much. We're going to move on and talk with Arlette, and then we'll come back to Karma in just a moment.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you. Arlette, welcome.
Yes. Hi.
Thank you for
How
your
are you?
patience, Arlette. It's great to see you. And we're going to start by talking about, well, actually, I've known you for a good long time, you and your husband, Steven, for, oh my goodness, at least probably since the time you were wed 38 years ago. I found an invitation that my parents had for your wedding. And
really?
yes, I believe I've
Yeah.
known you and Steven for at least that long. So I wanted to start with this image, this beautiful painting of Ixchel, the Mayan goddess of the moon and fertility. And I want to mention that she's also the patroness of the weavers. Can you tell us why you were drawn to depict her?
Oh, I love doing paintings of goddesses. And this one, I was looking at pictures of her and I'm like, oh, they're just not doing her justice. And I'm looking at the image that's on my screen and it looks like the top of her head's cut off. There's, you know, a snake growing on top of her head, which is very typical of not the paintings, but the
Depictions?
stone sculptures of her from back then. And yeah, it's a very long story of who Ixchel is, and she has this whole journey that she goes through, and there's love and heartbreak, and she finally becomes her own person, and her symbols is like the weaving and the moon, and she's a beautiful goddess, but she grows very old too. So she renews herself and grows old, and you know, it's kind of like a cycle thing. And the person that I painted was actually a really good friend of mine. And I posed her, and I posed her. I got her from the top up, and I decided to put her into this painting. Who she is?
Can we ask who she is? Or is that a secret?
Oh, I don't know. It's not.
We'll leave it a mystery.
It's not as.
It'll stay a mystery. So
yeah, I think it kind of. I haven't spoke to her in a long time, so yeah, no, it. Yeah, and I kind of did the toes backwards, and my husband looks at it, he goes, "There's something very wrong about this," and I go, "Oh no."
She's still beautiful, nevertheless.
Oh no, I fixed the toes.
Okay.
And they're fine.
And
this one is.
This is also in the Hecho in Colorado exhibit. Can you tell us a little bit? I know this was created in 1982, and you told me it's your interpretation of a curandera. It's called Keeper of the Tree.
Right. And this one was, oh, gee, clear back when I was first painting, I did this. And okay, so the symbols here is, she's a very old woman, but she's kind of timeless. And she is watching the tree. She is the keeper of the tree. She needs to keep it alive and you know, blossoming and blooming, because this tree is like the tree of life, and it heals the earth. And but she's a healer too. And so, you know, in taking care of it, she's helping to heal the world. And I have another tree that I did that's in this series that's kind of the same theme. But this painting, I put it in a little show in a, what was it? Festival of the Winds. And I don't know if you went to that or anything, but it was this really wonderful festival with music and dancing, Aztec dancing, and artists. And it was just beautiful. And yeah, so I did this outdoor show, and a man comes around and he says, I tell him, oh, I want 125 at that time, because it was one of the first that I did. And he said, nah, I'll give you 100. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think it's worth more than that. And yeah, so you got to know your worth. And actually back then, 125 would have been just perfect. You know, now that I sold it for more, as you know.
So you started painting a lot more once you had met Steven and were really inspired by his work. But I know you began your art career even earlier than that as a young lady. Could you tell us who your first mentor was?
Yes, her name was Carlota Espinosa, and you all know her as the great and famous muralist of Denver. She, phew, she blew me away, but I was just a little girl, and she showed me how to paint. It was oil painting, and I was small. I didn't know anything, but man, when I saw what she did and how well, it wasn't easy, but watching her do it, I was very, very inspired, and I wanted to do that in my life.
So I know that you met Carlota as a young woman. You would spend the summers at the Crusade for Justice, and so
yeah.
I can see very much in these three murals that you created for History Colorado as part of the Year of La Chicana. I can very much see the influence of Carlota. But can you tell us a little bit more about each of the three pieces, please?
Oh, sure. This first one here, I can't point at it, but it's the one on the lower left-hand side. This is Teresita Sandoval, and she was an early pioneer of Colorado. And she wasn't exactly good girl, but because she had three husbands, but she was very important to the Pueblo people. Do you see the background with Pueblo? She was part owner, and she took care of things. She was, the boss lady. And you can see the mountains in the background. That's the Pueblo Mountains. And yeah, she was very important because women, were very strong. They had to be, and they were pioneers. And, if not for them, then, the Hispanics wouldn't have been the first people in Colorado. My great-grandfather was an early settler along with his wife, and her name was Anna. So it was Felix and Anna, and they were some of the very, very first settlers too in Garcia, Colorado. So yeah, these were the places that people first started to settle. If they weren't Native American, they were, Spanish American.
Can you talk about the other two things?
Yes, and the one on the right, this is Juanita Dominguez, and she was important when it came to organizing the Crusade for Justice. She was there, and she came up with a song, Yo Soy Chicano, and that became like this rallying call. And when I was there, when I was going to school there, these are my memories of the things that I saw. I was introduced to my culture, and it was a little bit unfamiliar because, the school that I went to, the church that I went to was white. And I knew I was Chicana. I didn't know exactly what that meant. And it was beautiful because there was people singing in Spanish. There was the dancers and the Aztec dancers and the su teatro and everything else that went with that. Oh, it was just a really, really nice time. But more importantly, I learned my history, the history, Mexican history, let's just say. And I found it extremely fascinating, and it was something that I could really attach myself to. The one on the top left hand, I don't know, my screen's not showing it very well, and I don't know that you guys can see that. That is Guadalupe Briseno. And she was important in Greeley and Brighton area. She was working for this, it's Ketayama Corporation. And they made, they cut and sold carnations, and it was a factory, but it was very, very kind of messed up, and abusive almost. Yeah, it was a floral plant, and it had very miserable working conditions. And so she organized the women to do a strike and to, you know, talk out against all of that, the bad conditions that women had to go through and migrants had to go through. And between her and, you know, others, a movement, the whole Chicano movement came about. So now we're looking at my Chicana.
This beautiful painting you did, yeah, Chicana, and it's very obvious to me that you've had formal training just by how well executed it is. Can you tell us a little bit more about your education in art, and then also a little bit more about your opportunities teaching in community?
Do you want me to do that first? Okay. So
Sure.
yeah, I did go to college and I did take art. I wouldn't say that's where all my training came from. Not at all. Because the one who I was taking the painting classes, he was almost never there. And so he would, you know, give us our assignments, we would work on it, and then he would come in and, you know, have us critique each other. So basically he wasn't there to really train me. I did a lot like Carmelie. I was learning on my own. And I think if I had, you know, a professor to show me all the tricks, then, you know, I would have been a better artist. But I learned a lot from my husband watching him, Arlette Lucero, because he's a master artist and he amazes me. And he has done it so much that he can sit down and the next day there'd be a new painting, you know, out there for me to look at. And I'm like, wow, that was quick and it's beautiful. So in a sense, you know, I think I'm still learning quite a bit. I have my ideas, and that's what my strong point is, what I'm doing here. So to teaching, I have been teaching for years and years and years and years. And I started with Artistry with high school kids. And when I did that, I thought, oh, that's it. That's what I love doing. I love teaching. It was so much fun, especially with these kids. They were very talented. We did that big mural that's in West Side, not the health clinic, the Denver Health. Anyway, it's that big building there.
Human Services?
Human Services building.
Human Services.
In fact, I have a couple of pieces in there that I did with kids and with Art Street. And so after that, I was teaching in all of these different communities and, I mean, not communities with Denver, but different organizations, many different organizations.
I know you taught 7 years at the Escuela de Guadalupe, and you've also taught classes at the Museo de las Americas. Can you talk a little bit about this beautiful mural you were commissioned to do for the Museo a few years back?
Okay, so this one I call the Tree of Life, and it's like the same theme. Here's a little curandera. She's doing her sacred ceremonies. She has the Tree of Life before her. On the tree, you see the little tools that she uses for her healing. She heals in her way, but the Tree of Life, see the roots around the earth, it's healing the whole world. And this is a ceiba tree. And I wrote a little thing about ceiba trees. Is that this one? Okay, so this particular tree, okay, the ceiba is the most sacred tree for the ancient Maya. And according to Maya mythology, it was a symbol of the universe. The tree signified a root of communication between the 3 levels of earth. Its roots were said to reach down into the underworld. Its trunk represents the middle world. And its canopy of branches are high in the sky, symbolizing the upper world and the 13 levels in which the Maya heaven was divided. And the surrounding landscape, the mountains are Mayan, Guatemalan mountain scene. So that's what this one is all about.
You created originally a painting of this and then a mural for the museo, is that correct? It was a painting.
Yes.
A mural. And what was
Okay,
the
so
project for the mural? What exhibit was it?
He gets. No. It was with, okay, so it was with five other women.
And this was just a few years
I didn't
back.
write it down. I don't remember.
Oh, it was Las Hadas. It was the Las Hadas.
Las Hadas.
Yes.
Spelled, yes, Las Hadas. Yeah, and women I showed with, they really, really, really wonderful art. Especially Megan Dianza, I have to give her special kudos because she set this huge room with little rooms in there, and each room divided had different symbols.
So we're coming to the end of this presentation.
What time
So
is it?
I'm going to go back to Karma. Thank you very much, Arlette, for your presentation. Karma, I just want to have you talk a little bit more about your latest project, which is part of Crush Murals. You were accepted for the first time this year to participate. Can you tell us a little bit more about this wonderful project that you're doing with your friend and where it's located?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Arlette, by the way. You're amazing. And Las Hadas was amazing in person. So good job. So yeah, murals right now are happening in Denver. So if you're in Denver, Crush is like a big thing that's happening in the east side of Denver. This is the first year that I've applied. I've had a few reasons why I haven't, but I decided to this year. I got accepted to collaborate with my friend Meek here, and we are obviously against the border wall, and we are against things that are happening with detention centers. But since both her and I paint a lot of animals, our approach to it was to talk about the border wall's effect on ecosystems and animals that are in, specifically what we're focused on is the Sonoran Desert, Sky Island region of Mexico, Arizona, and New Mexico, in that little area. And so we're painting animal portraits of animals that are affected by that, endangered, or most of them are threatened, I think right now is what all four of them are. And we're gonna have some information. We're gonna create QR codes so that people, when they're walking by in the alley, will know what it's about, like, and read more about it, and be able to learn a bit more about the things that are happening with the border wall, and for humans as well as animals. And then
so this painting it'll be up for 1 year, and where is it located?
Yeah, it should be about a year. It's on the back side of the Denver Central Market, on the alley. So like kind of where the main, if anybody's familiar with that whole part on Larimer and 27th. So it's like between 27th and 26th, Walnut and Larimer in the alley right there. So there's a bunch of murals and stuff. And we'll be painting there all week, tomorrow through Sunday. We'll be there.
People are welcome to go see.
Yeah, and if you are going, everybody please wear your mask and don't go up to the artist walls, because people keep doing that and they're not supposed to, and it's irritating. So we'll space if you go. That's all.
And then Arlette, to conclude here, could you please tell us some more about your latest project? I know you've illustrated several books with Dr. Rene Fajardo. Can you tell us a little bit more about the latest publication you're working on?
These are tummy tale books, and they are written by different authors. So every time we do a book, there's like maybe 10 or 12 different authors. And what they do is they tell a really sweet story, or kind of a funny little story, and I illustrate it. And they're usually for children. They're children's stories, but I read them to my mom, and she thoroughly enjoys them. And at the end of each story is a recipe. And we've been doing this, for a very, very long time. And we'll probably continue to do that as long as they sell and they're popular. We'll continue to make these tummy tells. And each author gets an illustrated story.
And
so
what issue is this? Is this issue number 4? Or
I think this is like 6. I mean,
wow.
we've been, yeah, we've been doing this for a long time. And yeah, so I think it's about 5 or 6. And the one that I'm working on, yeah, I'm just barely at the beginning. I got a few stories. I didn't even get all the stories yet. So this is going to probably either be the biggest book or we're going to divide it into 2 books.
And it looks like a watercolor. Do you mostly create with watercolor for these illustrations?
I tried different things, I used acrylic before, but this one is watercolor, and I do like that the best.
And then do you sell these paintings? Do you sell them or keep them together in a collection?
I give them to Renee because she pays me for each illustration. So
Excellent.
They belong to her, and she shows them every once in a while. We'll have, some event where she can put them all up, all framed, and so people can see what they look like. But they're hers. I'm an artist for hire. And that's another way to make money, guys.
Yes.
Illustrating books. Yeah,
we're going to go ahead and conclude here. And I wanted to thank you very much, Arlette and Karma, for joining us this evening. We're going to turn it over to Corey right now.
Thank you, Adriana. So for this last portion, we're going to do some questions and answers. It looks like there was a question here from Gabriela for Arlette. She was curious just how big are your Year of La Chicana murals?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Okay, what was the question?
So she wanted, Gabriela wanted to know how big your Year of La Chicana murals are.
Oh, okay. Gosh, what was it? They're pretty big. I think they're like 7 or 8 feet or 7 feet by 5 feet, 5 feet by 7 feet, something like that. Each one of those.
How long does it take you to? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I did not have much time to do them because just the way everything went down, I had to put it all together because there's those 3 paintings, and then I have 2 collages of important women in our community. And so it's Year of La Chicana, so I wanted to make sure that I included as many important Chicanas in the community that I could. So there's 2 big collages and 3 paintings. And I had to put it together pretty quickly. I think it was like 3 months I had to get it all together, which was not at all enough time, but I made it happen. So yeah. I should have had more time, but you never know what happens.
We did get a comment here from, her name is Cindy Perrin, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. She just made a comment that she was one of the students for the mosaic mural at the Human Services building. So I just thought that was an interesting comment that you probably worked together.
Oh, nice.
Another question for you, Arlette, from Sonia. In the background of the mural of Guadalupe Briseno, there's a "Water is Sacred," which reminds me of the signs we saw around the North Dakota Access Pipeline movement. Can you talk more about the signs? Can you talk more about the protest signs in the background of that mural?
Okay, so some of them are pictures that I found from the 60s, but some of them are very, very current and reflect current protesting. What I was trying to show there is like she was part of that movement that started all of this. And so the protests that happened back then, and I was part of that in the 60s. I was part of that with my mom, and she'd be out there protesting with her children behind her. But that still goes on, and definitely today.
Thank you. If there's any more questions, please put them in the chat. We do have a couple more minutes. In the meantime, I do have a question for you, Karma. When I look at your pictures, particularly the piece that's in Hecho in Colorado of your friend, I love your color choices, and I'm just curious. They're just so unique and so vibrant when you see them in person, and I just wonder what inspires you to use those bold colors.
Thank you. Firstly, I appreciate that. I have been told a lot by a lot of friends who have gone to school, or an ex-boyfriend who thought that I wasn't as good a painter as him because I didn't go to an art school, that I wasn't following traditional like color wheel rules. And I'm like, okay, and like, why do I have to look like every other painter out there? And so I think that's a big part of it. Like I kind of really hate like having anything attached to like a dude that like taught me, or like, I don't know, I have a rebellious streak, I guess. Not so much anymore, but I used to. And so I was like, I don't want to follow those rules. And so I think that's probably where I kind of started to just mess around with contrast and color. And I think even like cinema has inspired me, because I really like a lot of lo-fi movies that have like Ocean's 13, the way the director filmed that inspires me. And I just, like I said, neon colors make me feel warm inside. I don't know what it is, but it's like vibrant and happy. I lived in Phoenix for 3 years, and that's where I really started to connect with my roots a lot. And everything's so vibrant, like papel picado, and everywhere you go in the grocery stores, and it's just happy. It feels happy. So that's my best explanation at the moment. But thank you. I love them, and I've also just been obsessed with hot pink lately. So
thank you. And one final question from Shanae. To both artists, where can we buy prints of your art? Pass it over to Arlette first.
Well, Shanae, you called me. We had this really nice gallery on Santa Fe Drive called Chalk Gallery, and our prints. Yeah, that place is not there right now. And I do have a website, and I don't have the link to it, sorry. But yeah, I can get that to you guys. And if you look up Stevan Lucero and buy prints, and then you can get both mine and his.
And Karma, do you have prints?
Right now, I do not have like high quality prints. I have a whole bunch of stuff I'm waiting to order at one time. But I do have artwork for sale right now, which is cool. The fox painting is hanging up at a shop on Santa Fe called Abstract. Some good friends of mine, and they support local artists, t-shirt printing company, and they have a clothing store. But I'm going to be putting prints in their new shop in Inglewood. And I'm working on a new website that will have a shop where you can purchase all these things. That should be up in like a month.
So we're going to end today's presentation with me just letting folks know that we're offering tours of Hecho in Colorado every Friday morning at 9 o'clock, and we're calling them cafecitos. So you can go to the History Colorado website and sign up. We can have up to 10 guests at a time, and we serve piñón coffee along with bizcochito cookies. And then I also want to mention that we're going to be doing our next Voces and Arte on Wednesday, October 7th at 6 o'clock with photographers Juan Espinosa and Daniel Salazar. And then if you're interested in learning more about the history of Chicano, Mexicano, and Latino people in Colorado, we encourage you to make an appointment at our research center, which is contained within History Colorado. Visitors can request to see artifacts and documents not on display free of charge. For more information, you're welcome to visit the Research Center's webpage, and we'll post that here. And then also, just to tell you a little bit more about the Latino Cultural Arts Center, the LCAC is on the verge of something truly special in the history of Denver that will elevate the artistic and intellectual contributions of the Latino and Chicano communities to a national level. We are developing a cultural campus across 3 locations, 2 of them in Sun Valley and 1 in the La Alma Park neighborhood. And now we'll have Corey wind up.
Great, thank you. I did want to mention too that if you happen to come late to this program, we do record these and we will post them onto our YouTube page. You can find the last 2 Voces and Artes on our YouTube page, and I posted a link in the chat box along with all of the other links that Adriana had mentioned. If you liked this program, please consider donating to support History Colorado so we can create more events like this. We just want to thank everybody again for attending, and thank you to Adriana, Karma, and Arlette for an engaging conversation, and also to Gloria Lopez for graciously volunteering her time to interpret this program. And we hope to see you all at our next Voces and Arte, October 6th. Thanks again, and I hope everybody has a good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Good night.